Friday night has Virginia going to Maryland. Maryland's at home. So this is like a national TV game. Tuluia Tonga is in action. I can see the number going to 14.5. We saw what happened with Virginia last week as well. I know that Maryland in these spots on national TV has done very well, believe it or not. I'm just looking at numbers. I don't know if I could chase. I think Maryland's better than Virginia, clearly. I don't know if I would chase over 2 touchdowns though, but I need a little bit. I need to see a little bit more as we get closer to Friday. But early lean, and I'm not a Virginia guy, but early lean. I think Maryland's going to be very good this year. I just 14.5, not there yet.
Yeah, there were some 12s and 13s on the openers. The opener was kind of all over the board on this one. I did grab Maryland minus 12 and 12.5 to give you an idea where I am. I don't think I'd take it past 14. I think 14 would probably be the highest I would take it here. Not PPing this one yet. I have another one on Friday I like a little bit more. Look, I really like Maryland. They played a terrible first half against Charlotte, and they came back and they kind of figured things out. But they have Michigan State on deck, which is a road game in their conference. Not that Michigan State is doing too well right now. They have their own shit going on, but still, I just think that this is, I think Maryland is probably in a decent spot to get a W here. Virginia coming off a really big game versus James Madison, an emotional game at home for them. They didn't end up winning the game. They lost by 1 in a last-second game. I think we did have Virginia last week. Most of it, I don't know if we gave it out, but I know I personally had Virginia with the points. I gave out Virginia's second half last week. I just think this is kind of somewhat of an emotional letdown here. So I think that, Maryland probably being a little bit undervalued, especially after the performance against Charlotte. Plus the, somewhat of an emotional letdown. I really do think that, especially here. And they got NC State next week, which is a conference game. I don't think they're going to overlook Maryland, but I do lean Maryland here with the points. I think 14 is probably the highest I would take it. And just to give you an idea, Joe, also Bethune-Cookman, Miami is Thursday. We didn't talk about that one. No spread on that game. But yeah, Bethune-Cookman, Miami, I got nothing for you. But, just
How about Miami last week? Listen, we mentioned it. Texas A&M on the road, Miami at home. Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah.
Maybe the U is back. We'll see. And I mean, the ACC could be open depending on Florida State, right? So
the ACC might be half decent this year. I could be wrong about this.
Well, you know who's not? It's the SEC right now.
Yeah.
And we can get into that later. But yeah, and again, we're using DraftKings odds early in the week, so some of the games I know they probably don't have on the board. So UTSA Army, I've gotten bid on UTSA 2 weeks in a row, and the Houston game, I thought they were competitive, but the turnovers killed them. And then last week, it was like they kind of gave up late. Now they're 9 against Army. That's 1-1, wants to play better. I've already tailed UTSA twice, so I'm out. But they just, to me, I if I was going to lean aside, it'd be Army, but I'm not. I'm out on UTSA at the moment.
Yeah, this one opened 11.5. I think if you liked Army, you probably need to grab double digits. It's 9.5 now. At least personally, I would have gone that way. I think under is probably the play I would look here. Under 45. I think you probably need 45.5 to play this one if you really, really want to bet that. 45.5 would be the side for me. In this game, probably won't end up betting it, to be honest with you. I think this number, look, UTSA played too much last week. I think we talked about that. There was too much against a Texas State team who's probably better than we think. They probably think they are. It was too much to lay points with me. I didn't like them against Houston, and they got Tennessee on deck. I mean, I think that's a pretty big look ahead, even though they have 8 days for the game. Still pretty big game there. Army is coming off a 57-0 whooping of Delaware State. Remember, this is the same team that blew it on the road to UL Monroe. They were up 10-0 in that game, lose 17-13. So not a great team. Again, probably looking at double digits here for me, but the under would be the way I look in UTSA in this one.
All right, here's an interesting one. Utah State and Air Force. I remember this game clearly last year. Utah State scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to come back and win the game against Air Force. So I saw some of the Utah State game versus Iowa. They got down 17-3, but kind of hung around a little bit. And then they played Idaho State last week and dropped 44 points. So I don't know what Utah State is yet.
They dropped 78 points.
Sorry, 78. 44 points in the second quarter. My bad. 78-28 was the final in that one. So, dude, Air Force has all the momentum. They had a lot of hype, but this is a revenge spot for Air Force. And I know Air Force started slow last week. Maybe they were looking ahead. So I like Air Force to win. I just don't know if Utah State's been competitive against Air Force the last couple of years and won outright last year. So I keep that in mind, but it is a revenge spot. It might be too many points, but again, I think Air Force was looking ahead last week.
No, I completely agree with you. I think they were looking ahead. The number never really made sense, to be honest with you. It was just too big of a number, to be perfectly frank. And I leaned the dog last week. I think this is a great spot for Air Force, though. They have a similar. I mean, their defense is not as good as Iowa's, but I do think it's a similar type game. And I think Utah State struggles offensively here, especially after their breakout. They're flying high. I think that, to me, this is a nice bounce back for Air Force in a big game, at least in my opinion. They really haven't shown much the first couple of weeks. But I think, again, when you ground and pound a team like this and you wear them down, they have a couple outs, offensively, and all of a sudden they're playing catch up. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen in this game. Give me Air Force minus 9.5 PP. I really like this spot for them. I think they take this game, and I'm laying the points here. Give me Air Force minus 9.5.
Yeah, I think Air Force is the side, and in a revenge spot. What was any line movement on that one yet?
Yeah, so this one has been kind of all over the net. There are some 10s out there. There's some 9.5s out there. I think that this one open. I think DraftKings opened this one like 13.5. So they're probably a little bit more around my number, which I made this game 11 or 12. I think it was like 11.7, whatever it was. But yeah, I lean Air Force here. I think this one also goes over, by the way. I do think Utah State will score a little bit. But look, I think Air Force offensively, they played a defensive team last week and did struggle a little bit. But I think the Utah State defense is pretty shitty. Idaho State, again, they're not a bad FCS team by any means. I don't want to say anything, but people look at the San Diego State game, maybe overreact a little bit. San Diego State is real bad. They're bad this year.
Called that UCLA last week. They struggle against Pac-12 teams.
Yeah. So I think they're pretty bad this year. I'm not going to put too much stock into that Idaho State win. I think it's a good spot for Air Force in that revenge spot, probably against a Utah State team that's being a little bit overvalued from the last week. And again, 2-0 against the spread. I think their streak comes to an end here. I like Air Force in this spot.